Wow, is it comfy to boot up my fat ass PS2 again. As much as I eternally resent this system for killing my precious child, the Dreamcast, the PS2 is video gaming's greatest generation. Dark Cloud falls on the side of the platform where it was still in its early days, still a little bit rough and tumble, still feeling out where it was going to go, and lacking in the detail and polish that games towards the end of the lifespan would have. Just look at Dark Cloud 2 as an example. But in that innocence, there is this serenity. It's something really wonderful to look back on. Dark Cloud 1 came out mad early in the system's lifespan, and you can really feel that learning to crawl before you walk primitiveness permeate throughout the game. And I'm hoping this isn't nostalgia talking, but I kinda like that. I like how weirdly empty the game is, how visually boring so many of the spaces are, how little emphasis story and characters end up getting. It's a game that is so totally crunchy mechanics first and foremost that all the additional fluff and sparkle was never prioritized. Strangely enough, it feels like a spruced up N64 game. When I think PS1, I think more about jagged edges and incredibly dense JRPGs. In that comparison, the softer textures and more limited character interactions feel somewhat more in line with a Nintendo product. Dark Cloud is this awesome spiritual successor to ActRaiser shoved into a 3D Legend of Zelda game. You do some D, C dungeon crawling to advance the story, and get the building blocks to put the towns you visit back together. And that's it. There's so little narrative or plotting going on that the majority of the game is mechanical expression. It's fun putting these villages back together, and even if all the inhabitants are one-note characters, there is this comforting charm in watching everything start to take shape. Sure, you get a little cutscene when someone's house is fully rebuilt, but they are usually so inconsequential that I wouldn't count them as story or anything. And so, because of that, the joy is kind of something you make of it yourself, if that makes sense. Because it's not this grand ordeal in putting these lives back on track, you have your own internal warmth of rebuilding that acts as a reward. I don't know how to describe it. It's oddly super comfy. Let me try and dissect this feeling a different way. I was at the right age in the world to be the kid who opened up the N64 at Christmas. As much as N64 Christmases are a mimetic touchstone of gaming's culture, I can't overstate how important it was to see gaming wholesale transform into the third dimension. I talked about it somewhere in my top 5 runner-up video a bit, so check that out if you want more discussion on that paradigm shift. But the N64 ignited a level of wonder and awe in video games that can't ever really be replicated for me. The specific example I want to link back to in Dark Cloud 1 is that when I, a young Babu, the age 7, would play Mario Kart 64's Rainbow Road, I would impersonate the characters in the sky as constellations. I gave each of them the voices the game told me they had, and would verbally pretend that they were cheering me on in my race. Unless they were Bowser or Wario, those dudes would absolutely pray for my downfall. Something about Dark Cloud 1 reminds me of that experience, taking aspects of the game in no way meant to invoke that creativity and feeling, and giving them personal life to bolster my own time with the game. Dungeons, on the other hand, are much less comfy. In fact, they are a bit of a constant pain in my ass. Unlike the city building, running through dungeons is a prickly battle. It's very old school dungeon crawling insofar as the amount of mechanics you are balancing. Sure, you need to track your weapon's health to make sure it doesn't break and you lose all your hard work in upgrading it, but also thirst is dumb and just adds additional tax onto the game. You don't perform any better or anything when not thirsty. You just have to keep on top of thirst, otherwise you start taking damage. Also, unlike weapon durability, thirst eventually stops being a thing that matters, only ever impacting you early in the game and then being a null mechanic once you hit the halfway point. The game also gives you an eventual party of 6, but there is a shockingly large amount of friction in this. For starters, most allies aren't exactly super fun to play with. The game doesn't have a robust combat system or anything, so some characters are just kinda boring. Predominantly the melee characters who are not Tone. This blows when you get to a floor that is limited to someone like Ungaga only, and now he's plonking a dragon for minor damage 1 billion times over to clear the dungeon, and exhausting so many resources in doing so. Worse so, Tone, the main character, is the only person who can open the party balls that have all the city building assets in them, so unless you want to briefly switch to him 7 times in one floor, It's best to just play as Tone and leave all the other allies as assist calls when you need their specific abilities. I don't want to do that because I want to keep my whole party relevantly leveled, but sometimes I would just feel this, fuck it, I should just play as Tone the whole floor feeling. As a whole, it's not particularly bad, but it is very clunky and it has that certain old school flair of the frustration being an integral part of the intended experience. The flip side to this is that advancement through the dungeons is paced in such a manner that feels very welcoming in today's day and age. I'm in my 30s and I don't have time to couch lock and poop sock hours into a game anymore. Because Dark Cloud is so lacking in narrative you need to keep track of, it's very easy to sit down, spend 15 minutes or so cranking out a level, and then go about your day. Like there's a story, but it bookends the game, and everything between are these small-scale tales that go down really easy. As you progress through the game, there's this rewarding feeling of avatar strength. Resources become less costly, your weapons start hitting for way more. By the time the last dungeon comes around, it still has its challenges, but you can mostly cruise through it if you're leveled up. It's a comfortable pace that feels so easy to come back to after a week or so of not being able to play. And something that adds to that comfortable pace of play is the music. God, it's just so old school fantasy video game. It's so beautiful and serene and peaceful that it paints this game in this calming atmosphere. Put my finger on why the vibe is so strong. Like, yes, it has the warmth of the game from ages past, but even games in the style that came before, like Ocarina of Time, are infinitely more advanced than this. But yet something about this game grabbed me and never let go. Dark Cloud is such a throwback, and even if some parts of that throwback feel like they should be left in the past, the whole of the game was one of the most impactful games I played this year. It complemented my schedule perfectly. It reminded me of the styles of old. It was incredibly comfy to sit down and play, and it was more of a joy to play today than it was back when the PS2 was current. I can't recommend revisiting this game enough. I had such a good time every instance of sitting down and turning on my old CRT. And if that recording looks a little weird, that's because I don't have the greatest retro recording setup. Send help in the comments, please. Also, before we go, I put out a video on my secondary channel as one of those like lo-fi music to chill and relax thingy-dingies. I don't believe I've ever talked about my secondary channel in the video yet, but I have one linked on my page, and it's all the non-video essay stuff like tournament footage or fun BS will be going over there. If that interests you, give it a follow.